Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're doing a bit of forensic accounting on one of literature's most famous and, honestly, most beloved endings. By the end of Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, the moral universe is just in perfect, immaculate balance. Think about it. Every single character who hurt Jane, they suffer a terrible fate. And conversely, every character who helped her, they prosper. It's incredibly satisfying to read, right? It gives us this profound sense of closure. But what happens when we actually audit this flawlessly balanced ledger? Well, today, that's exactly our goal. We're going to peel back the layers of this classic story to reveal the surprisingly ruthless, highly mechanical account book driving the finale. A system where every helper automatically prospers and every hurter automatically suffers. Okay, let's dive into this strict audit. Today, we're going to establish the perfect moral ledger, examine who gets punished and who gets rewarded, uncover the danger of physiognomy, and finally expose what I like to call a fairy tale machine. Section 1. The perfect moral ledger and the idea of cosmic justice. We really have to start with the widely accepted premise of the novel's ending, because when you first read it, it operates on what seems like a totally flawless system of cosmic justice. This brings us to the core concept operating here, poetic justice. You know the drill. It's a literary outcome where virtue is consistently rewarded and viciousness is inevitably punished. It functions basically like a perfect fairy tale ending. Now, when you're reading a novel, especially one rooted in the gritty realities of the 19th century, you don't necessarily expect the universe to perfectly sort everyone into good and bad buckets. But that is exactly what happens here. And while it looks super satisfying on the surface, we're going to dismantle that illusion today. Because beneath this perfect ledger actually hides a deeply rigid system of cruelty. We're going to see who exactly gets punished, who gets rewarded, and why the system of quote-unquote justice is actually pretty ruthless when you look closely at the mechanics. Section 2. Who gets punished? Specifically, the Reed family. We're going to examine the brutally harsh realities facing Jane's childhood tormentors, who are systematically and frankly mercilessly punished for ever crossing her. Let's start with John Reed, the cousin who made Jane's early life absolutely miserable. Consider the incredibly compressed timeline of his downfall. Jane left Gateshead when she was just 10 years old. At that time, John was 14. When Jane later hears of his death, she's about 19. That means in just 9 short years, this young man managed to completely destroy his vast inheritance, accumulate absolutely ruinous debts, go to prison not once but twice, and ultimately commit suicide at the young age of 23. Now, is it possible? Sure, but the speed is highly suspicious. In a realist novel, financial and moral ruin usually takes a bit more time, you know? Here, it's so remarkably fast that it feels like the author is in a profound hurry to destroy him just to balance the books and enact her revenge. Next up is Eliza Reed. She gets sent to a convent in France and eventually becomes an abbess. Now, on paper, that might sound like a peaceful religious calling, but the novel presents this entirely as a punishment. Why is that? Well, you have to view this through the lens of the author and the era. Bronte was a strict Protestant, and in the eyes of a 19th century English Protestant, a Catholic convent was definitely not a holy place. It was a prison, a complete exile. To that audience, it was literally considered a living death. Eliza isn't finding God. She's being buried alive in an institution. She's not allowed to stay in England. Instead, she's permanently banished across the Channel to a foreign country. Then we have Georgiana Reed, the undisputed beauty of the family. She ultimately marries a rich old aristocrat, seemingly securing the immense wealth and high social status she always wanted. You'd think she won, right? Yet the novel explicitly frames this as a punishment too. Why? Because the text pointedly says she married a wealthy, worn-out man of fashion. That phrase, worn out, is absolutely key here. The clear implication is that she has no true love. She effectively sold herself for money, and as a consequence, she's forever trapped in a superficial, hollow existence. Her punishment is getting exactly what she asked for, but finding it entirely devoid of joy. Section 3. Who gets rewarded? Jane's allies. Let's shift gears and see how this builds into a very different rhythm. We're going to completely change our pacing here to match the painfully neat, repetitive packaging of the rewards given to everyone who is kind to Jane. When we look at the outcomes for her allies, it is spectacularly simplistic. Honestly, it's almost mathematical. Let's run through them. Bessie, the kind nurse, marries a respectable coachman and has 3 children. She's happy. Miss Temple, the supportive teacher, marries an excellent clergyman. She is happy. Diana and Mary Rivers, who take Jane in, marry upstanding men, a naval officer and a clergyman. They are happy.
St. John Rivers goes to India as a missionary. He's celebrated as a hero. And Jane, she marries Rochester. She has a son. She is happy. This perfectly highlights the highly artificial, repetitive refrain of the novel's ending. Everyone simply gets a respectable marriage or becomes a celebrated hero, culminating in that painfully neat, mechanical conclusion, she is happy.
Section 4. The danger of physiognomy, or reading moral character. But how does the novel actually decide who gets put in the punishment column and who gets put in the reward column from the very beginning? Let's uncover the disturbing underlying mechanism driving all of these outcomes.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this concept, physiognomy. It's the idea that a person's true moral character can be read directly from their physical facial features and appearance. Under this system, good people are inherently beautiful, bad people are inherently ugly. This is a pure fairy tale aesthetic. It dictates exactly who the reader should love and who they should hate, without ever really making them think. You don't need to deeply analyze their actions, you just need to look at them. Now, what's really interesting here is the direct textual comparison. Think about the villains. Brocklehurst is described as having a large nose, a large mouth, and a large, bony, Roman Catholic-looking face. He visually looks like a villain. John Reed is large and stout for his age with a dingy and unwholesome skin, thick lineaments and a spacious visage, heavy limbs and large extremities. Notice the physical weight given to the villains. They are literally weighed down by their bad character. He looks like a brute. But contrast that with the heroes. St. John Rivers is described with a Greek face, a pure, pale forehead and blue eyes. He looks like a hero. Bessie is slim with dark hair, dark eyes, fine features and fair skin. She looks like the good, trustworthy nurse. In this universe, the physical beauty of a character absolutely dictates their moral worth.
Section 5. A fairy tale machine. The final verdict. Let's conclude our audit. We need to summarize how this cold, mechanical ledger ultimately strips these iconic characters of their actual messy humanity.
Here is our final verdict on the ledger. It is simply too fast. John dies too young, and Eliza becomes an abbess far too quickly for a grounded realist novel. It is too cruel. Eliza is forcefully exiled from her home country, and Georgiana is permanently trapped in a loveless marriage. And finally, it is far too neat. The good are beautiful and the bad are uniformly ugly. The moral ledger we've been admiring is not a depiction of true organic justice. It's a machine built purely for distributing rewards and punishments. And when characters are reduced to mere functions of Jane's emotional needs, well, they stop being real, complex people. They become flat symbols operating within a machine. Which leads us to our final question. Based on our rigorous audit of this mechanical, perfectly balanced ledger, is Jane Eyre a true realist classic, or is it simply a fairy tale dressed up in realistic clothing? I want you to fundamentally reconsider the genre of this novel the next time you open its pages. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep auditing what you read, and we'll see you next time.